Hello, this is Mr. Hornsby 83 with Mr. Hornsby 83 topic, and today, talking about the Star Wars franchise. I'm going to start out with talking about the prequels and what they could have done to fix them, and who should have been the main villain leading into Episode 3, but I'm also going to talk about the original trilogy. I don't go too in depth on that because everybody knows about it. Everybody loves the original trilogy anyway, so I'm going to just talk about a few inconsistencies with the original trilogy. I'm not going to talk like, most people talk about them. But, then I'm going to talk about some, just say, inconsistencies with Force Awakens. But first I'm going to start with the prequels, and I actually got this idea. I was watching a Collider video, I think it was their mailbag, and a fan asked them, what would you have done to change the prequels of the Star Wars franchise? And they gave their opinion on what they think they would have done to make them better. My opinions are going to differ. Some of my opinions might be the same as theirs. But first of all, the main thing they should have did, the main villain of the whole freaking franchise, up until the end of Revenge of the Sith, should have been Darth Maul. I mean, he was the best thing about him and Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan. They were the best things about the freaking prequels. I mean, I like Lyman Nielsen. I loved him as Ra's al Ghul. Loved him as Darkman. Nobody's seen Darkman, but he was in the first one. He didn't come back in the other two because they had freaking Arnold Vosloo. But Darth Maul should have been the main villain up until at least the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. And the way they should have started out Episode 1 instead of the little thing where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon is going to have the meetings with the, I think, Viceroy. They should have showed Darth Maul hunting down some of the Jedi and wiping a couple of them out. And then he's getting communication from Lord Sidious that, alright, you've done a good job. I'll let you know when I need you again. And we'll go from there. But instead they gave us that. So, yeah. Another thing I would have changed is, they should have had someone that looked a little bit older playing freaking Anakin in Episode 1. Other than Jake Lloyd, especially if they were going to do the Padme storyline where they fall in love and she's the father of Luke and Leia. Mother, my bad. The mother of Luke and Leia, because we know Anakin, aka Darth Vader, is the father. I'm sitting here drinking out Chewbacca's head, drinking some green tea, diet green tea. But because it's just odd seeing the little boy hit on a chick that looks like she's about close to her 20s. If the boy looked like if he more looked like he was a teenager, although Natalie Portman did kind of look teenager-ish, but if he would look more like a teenager in Episode 1, like maybe he was 12, 13 or something, and like Padme was, 15 or something. I mean, it's not like it's never happened before. Gravity Falls. They could have had somebody other than Jake Lloyd playing Anakin in Episode 1. And honestly, I think the big thing is the Death Star should not have been in Episode 1, period. I think they should have freaking changed it. Should have had some kind of big time star base. They kind of did that with Episode 7, which we'll get to later. But that's one thing. Another thing, too, is they could have had better acting out of a lot of the actors. Better storylines for the things. And I know a lot of people dog on Jar Jar Binks. And yeah, he deserves to be dogged on, but I didn't think he was the major problem of the prequels. Me personally, I like the prequels. I'm not going to say they're as great as the originals, because they're nowhere near the freaking originals. The originals were just freaking masterpieces. But I did like them. I'm in that minority that liked the prequels. You know, a lot of people don't like him. I know a lot of people love him. It's kind of like with the Batman v Superman thing, but you know, um, but yeah, episode 1, and honestly, when he killed Qui-Gon, and when him and Obi-Wan were fighting, when he didn't kill Obi-Wan, he's like taunting him, and Obi-Wan jumped up and they just started fighting. What should have happened, Obi-Wan should have overpowered him a little bit, and then he like kind of retreated, and we didn't see him again until episode 2, but that's not what happened. Instead he gets sliced in half, which is ridiculous, but I will talk about Darth Maul again here soon. Then we get to episode 2. We got an older Anakin played by someone the actual same age as freaking Natalie Portman. Sorry about that. My throat's just real sore and real thirsty. So, but they're at the same age, and it seems like now the Empire's trying to wipe out Padme or Queen Amidala so that they can take down her, so they can get complete control of the console. Because if you've seen, because Padme voted for a new Supreme Chancellor in that, which we later find out who that new Supreme Chancellor was, but at the end, which is something that was odd with episode 1, when Obi-Wan got killed by Darth Vader, he just vanished and disappeared. When Yoda passed away in the original trilogy, he disappeared. When Qui-Gon got killed by Darth Maul, he was still alive. Or his body didn't vanish like when Obi-Wan and that did, which is something I didn't like, because I'm like, well, wait a minute. Obi-Wan freaking disappeared when he got killed by Darth Vader. Yoda disappeared when he died. So what the heck's the deal? But I don't know. It's just odd. So we get, like I said, episode 2, Empire trying to wipe out Queen Amidala, aka Padme, and Anakin and Obi-Wan is set to protect her, which pretty much ends up becoming Anakin, because Obi-Wan's going on his investigation on what's going on and how the dark side's able to cloud the Jedi's visions of the future and this and that, and finds out about the clone army that was authorized. Then eventually finds out that Count Dooku, aka Darth Tyrannus. Oh god! Look, I think Christopher Lee played Darth Tyrannus, but I just did not care for that character. It was the worst Sith Lord ever, and it was just whack. I mean, come on now, you gave us Darth Maul in episode 1, and then you give us Lord Tyrannus in episode 2. This is ridiculous. Oh my god, man, what? What was freaking George Lucas and them thinking? Oh, hey, we took this awesome villain who could be as awesome as Darth Vader, and we're gonna replace him with a guy that's freaking as lame as the Emperor. But, nah. Well, I'm not gonna say as lame as the Emperor. Emperor is a pretty awesome villain in the original trilogy, anyway. But, so the whole story revolves around Obi-Wan investigating, the Jedi trying to find out what's going on. Obi-Wan finally stumbles on Darth Tyrannus. Wow. But the thing, we also get Jango Fett in this, which was just a way to introduce Boba Fett. And I mean, come on now. When you kill Jango Fett quickly, I mean, look, I like Mace Windu. He's like probably one of my favorite Jedi's aside from, Luke and them. But come on now, you killed off Jango Fett that fast just to introduce Boba. But I don't know. Another thing too, another problem I had, I think Yoda should have been more of a focus in these movies as well. Or had a bigger, well, not more of a focus, but had a bigger role in this movie, because really in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, he's really a non-factor. Yeah, he was training Luke, but Luke didn't complete his training with him in Empire Strikes Back. But Luke did come back to complete it, but then Yoda died. So he's like, well, once you take on Darth Vader, if you survive that, then you will be a Jedi. So, so we get the big fight scene at the end because Padme and Obi-Wan gets captured. Anakin finds out, even though he was like. And another thing too, the chemistry between Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen was just not there in the movie. I think they should have had better chemistry, but who knows? And the way this dynamic with Anakin and Obi-Wan was kind of weird because Anakin mostly denied Obi-Wan and always challenged everything Obi-Wan said. But in the first one, A New Hope, Obi-Wan said, oh, he was great, he was a good friend, this and that. Okay, he's a good friend, but yeah, he's challenging you at every freaking chance he gets when you give him a direct order about something. But so then, you know, they get captured trying to save Obi-Wan, and then finally the whole Jedi Council comes to fight. We see Mace Windu, we see Yoda, we see a bunch of the other Jedi Council members. So, as that goes on, Mace Windu, like I said, kills Jango Fett. They beat the bad guys. Obi-Wan and Anakin go to fight Darth Tyrannus, but apparently he's so powerful they can't beat him, although I would have rather seen freaking Darth Maul fight him, but no. But then we get Yoda comes in. First time you get to see Yoda actually fight. And he fights with Count Dooku, which ends up ending with Count Dooku running away because Yoda's just majorly powerful. So then that's the end of that. And like with episode 1, they ended with a happy ending. This one ended more darker. They were trying, I guess they were going for that. Actually, it didn't end dark because it ends with Anakin and Padme getting married, although they didn't have chemistry through most of the movie. But that's beside the point. And Padme pretty much was freaking rejected Anakin, and then, you know, finally, it seemed like pretty much Anakin had to force himself onto her. But that's the way it ends. Then we get also Anakin's mom he finds out she got killed after she'd been won by another guy. He marries her, he treats her well, and which introduces a stepbrother for Anakin, which plays a big part in well, not really a big part, just a big part in A New Hope, but plays a big part in the original trilogy, I guess you could say. But then we get to episode 3, which starts out, bam, Darth Tyrannus killed, like bam, but apparently he captured Chancellor Palpatine, and eventually we get to the point where Anakin finds out that Palpatine is Lord Sidious. And I mean, God, he threw hints throughout most of it. I think he threw hints in episode 1 or 2. I know he threw a lot of hints in episode 3. He was hinting at that hard, like, oh, you ever know about the dark side of the Force? Tells him about Lord Plagueis, which would have been awesome to see that character. But talks about Lord Plagueis, then Anakin finds out. Also, the subplot is that Anakin has a dream, like he did with his mom dying. Has a dream that Padme is gonna die. Padme lets him know, oh, I'm pregnant with your kids. And Anakin wants to do everything he can to keep her alive. And Sidious sits there and tells him, oh, you know, I could teach you how to bring people back to life from dying, this and that. And Anakin's like, yeah, well, you know. But he still goes and tells Mace Windu that he believes that Palpatine is the Sith Lord they've been looking for, which comes to find out it is. And one of my favorite scenes from Revenge of the Sith is the fact that Mace Windu has him. He's down and out. He deformed his face, and he's like, now surrender. And then, you know, Lord Sidious is like, no, no, no. Which is pretty funny. So after that, Mace Windu gets killed, and he, you know, Sidious tells Anakin, well, you gotta wipe out the whole Jedis, and then the plan that they implemented comes to pass and the Jedi gets wiped out by a bunch of clones, which makes no sense. Because the thing about it was, they said in the original trilogy, it was Darth Vader that helped Lord Sidious wipe out all the Jedi, but apparently it was just, Darth Vader just killed younglings and Mace Windu. Everyone else got wiped out by freaking stormtroopers, which is pretty lame. But then we get to fight with Obi-Wan, Anakin. Anakin, he pretty much beats him, and he's like, "You were supposed to join the Force. You were supposed to help us bring balance, this and that, and he's like, you were like my brother," which I didn't like that line because it seemed like Obi-Wan was more like a father to Anakin than a brother, because Anakin didn't have a father. Should have been more like a father, and he was a young boy when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, took him. And he's like, "Oh, you're like my brother." What, father? Well, it could be, maybe Qui-Gon was like the father that Anakin never had, and Obi-Wan was just a brother, who knows. But I really didn't like that. Apparently the Emperor had a hard-on to keep Darth Vader as his new apprentice, which apparently, because the Force is so strong with him. Also, supposedly Darth Vader was supposed to have completed his Jedi training before he went Sith, but it seemed like he still had Jedi power problems, but who knows. Now I'm going to move on to the original trilogy and some of the inconsistencies with it, which I'll get to in a sec. I gotta say one more thing about the original, the prequels. People complain about how whiny Anakin was, but I mean, if you look at New Hope when it first starts, Luke's kind of whiny. Not as bad as Anakin. Anakin's whining throughout the whole freaking franchise, all 3 movies. Whine. Luke, he's just like whiny at first at the beginning, and then he stops being whiny, and he becomes this awesome Jedi Master. But I want to talk about some of the inconsistencies with the original trilogy. One of them being that Luke's uncle did not recognize C-3PO or R2-D2. And if you've seen in the prequels, once, Anakin's stepdad had Anakin's mom as his wife and that, and he met his stepbrother, that they had C-3PO, and they had completed him, because Anakin didn't, and they had R2-D2, and now the guy doesn't recognize him. I'm like, well, okay, but, so that was a little inconsistency between the 2 storylines. Also, another problem was Luke's uncle didn't believe in Obi-Wan. He's like, oh, he's old Ben Kenobi. He's a freaking old coot because Leia sent R2-D2 and C-3PO to find Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Luke's like, well, maybe it's old Ben Kenobi. And he's talking about how Obi-Wan's dead and old Ben, he's an old kook. But come to find out, Obi-Wan was old Ben. But, which was something that was really inconsistent to the prequel storyline. I don't know if that's the fault of the people that made the prequels or if it's the fault. Because if they were going to intertwine these storylines, why did you do that? Where it's like, oh yeah, the uncle doesn't recognize him in this one, but the uncle and the stepdad and that had him in episode 2. And then episode 3, they ended up going with Anakin, which, that's another thing too. C-3PO and R2-D2 did not recognize who they were. C-3PO didn't remember Obi-Wan, R2-D2. He was just like, oh, I gotta find Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think R2 might have remembered him. Who knows? They never really had R2 talk much. He was just do. And I know that was bad impression, but so that's one inconsistency. And so let's see, what's another inconsistency? Oh yeah, the fact that Obi-Wan did not tell Luke. I wouldn't say it's an inconsistency, that was just inconvenient. Obi-Wan didn't tell Luke that Leia was his sister sooner. He did not tell them about their father. Well, he kind of did, but he said Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker. And like I said before, as I mentioned, talked about how Anakin was a great friend, and Anakin was a great friend, and he always listened to me, but yet he always challenged him in the prequels, so it made a lot of sense. Another inconsistency is, another inconsistency was Darth Vader not knowing that his kids were out there somewhere, because at the end of Revenge of the Sith, the Emperor tells Darth Vader that, oh, Padme, she died, you killed her in the rage, you choked her. And he did not sense Luke or Leia at all throughout that time. He didn't even, even in freaking episode 4, he didn't sense Leia was his daughter when he was, when they were going to destroy her planet and they had captured her at the beginning. So it made no sense to me how he did not know, and of course the Emperor somehow knew. Well, the Emperor knew, but Darth Vader didn't know. I'm like, how the heck do you not know your kids? He's supposed to have been so powerful with the Force. I mean, he was pretty strong, but so I don't get that. Another inconsistency was, I don't know, Boba Fett. Not remember. No. I don't know. But that, I guess I'll jump to Force Awakens, which that's a good movie. I loved it. But alright, so Force Awakens, it's introducing all the characters, all the new characters. You got Rey, you got Poe Dameron, you got the new villain Kylo Ren, which a lot of people thought was Luke Skywalker, but you didn't find out when you seen the movie it wasn't Luke Skywalker. You also got, I think I already said that. Then you also get the return of Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Luke Skywalker. But you also got C-3PO back, R2-D2, some other characters from the original trilogy. And then you got introduced to BB-8 and all that. So the way Force Awakens starts, I think it's Jakku getting attacked by the First Order, which is the new Empire. Snoke is the new Emperor. Kylo Ren is supposed to be the new Darth Vader. And look, I like Kylo Ren. My problems with Kylo Ren is some of the stuff he said about, oh, I'm struggling, I'm getting pulled toward the light and that. But you really don't see him struggle too much. I mean, especially with what he does with Han Solo at the end. But him struggling, he's still not completely. Another thing too is the general that kept, challenging his authority and that, and I'm thinking, well, if that was Darth Vader, because all Kylo Ren wanted to do was be like Darth Vader, if that was Darth Vader, he would have done freaking Sith mind trick, choked the life out of that guy. But I mean, in episode 4, there was a general that I guess was above Vader, but he didn't treat Lord Vader the way freaking Kylo Ren gets treated by this general. But so we find out Kylo Ren is the son of Luke and, or not Luke, of Leia and Han Solo, and he went to the dark side for some reason, which they never explain in the movie. Hopefully they explain it in episode 8. Maybe Luke will tell Rey. But I mean, Rey, she's an awesome character. It's gonna be good to see her in the next couple. Awesome fighter, so Force is strong with her. Finn, something I think might happen too. Finn might end up getting trained by Luke too to become a Jedi, because how much he cares about Rey and how much he's got a good heart, because his first outing for the First Order, I mean, he had worked for the First Order, but this is the first time he's going out for a slaughter of a village, and it was in Jakku. And he just said, I can't kill for the people. So he leaves the Empire, helps Poe Dameron escape. Although he thought Poe Dameron died, he later find out he's still alive. So Kylo Ren, he was Ben Solo, or Ben Leia. I don't know what his last name's going to be. it's gotta be Solo because Leia would sound lame for Kylo Ren, especially if they're building him up to be this awesome villain like Darth Vader. One thing I will say, Kylo Ren was willing to do that Darth Vader was not willing to do. Kylo Ren actually killed Han Solo, which is something Darth Vader couldn't do. Darth Vader could not kill Luke. Couldn't bring himself to kill Luke. He made himself think he could, but he couldn't. Because in the end, he's the one that takes the Emperor when the Emperor's just like blasting Luke, and Luke's about to die. He takes him, throws him over the freaking ramp, or rail or whatever, and that's the end of the Emperor. But Kylo Ren, and I heard a lot of people complain about this, like, oh, we hate Kylo Ren because he killed Han Solo. Yeah, I know Han Solo was a beloved character, but one, Harrison Ford wanted out of the Star Wars franchise. So you can do Indiana Jones 5. No, I'm kidding. But he wanted out of the franchise. And it makes sense to kill him off because Luke, you really don't see Luke till the end of the movie. So why not? And the way Kylo Ren talked about Han Solo throughout the whole movie, oh, I could care less about him. Oh, you think of Han Solo because when he was reading Rey's thoughts, he's like, oh, you think of him as like the father you never had. He will disappoint you. I'm like, wow. And then when, Han Solo's talking to him and then he's like, trying to show me to the light side, this and that. Which, that was one time it did seem like he was struggling, but then, blam, knifes him right through the frickin', I think, the chest or whatever. Killed him. And a lot of people were like, oh, Han Solo, he should've, they didn't like that he didn't say nothing, just caressed his face. Honestly, the only thing I think he could have said, and it probably would have gave, Kylo Ren regrets for killing his father, is, I love you, son. I mean, I wasn't looking for no sarcastic remark, because it is his son. No sarcastic remark. I wasn't looking for him to, be a douchebag and say, I always knew you were a disappointment. So if he was going to say anything, it would have to say, I love you, son. And then, fell and died. And that would have made Kylo Ren conflict even more. And you would see the conflict in the next one, like, oh, I killed my father, and his last word to me was, I love you, son. That would have been a better, that would have been the only thing they could have had Han Solo say that would have made an impact. Because anything else would have probably been lame. But, Rey, she gets mad. Chewbacca, he gets really mad because Han Solo was like his best friend. Gets really mad, blasts at Kylo Ren. Rey's like, when him and Rey are fighting in the forest after he done injured Finn, she freaking mops the floor with him, and that's because he's struggling with his powers. But I think he'll be more powerful in the next one because Snoke's like, well, bring Kylo Ren. It's time for him to complete his training, so he might get to that Darth Vader level of being powerful, and maybe if that freaking general treats him bad, the next one, he'll just be like, and then General, and just die. I would love to see that. Like I said, I like Kylo Ren. My 3 favorite villains from Star Wars is Kylo Ren, Darth Maul, and Darth Vader. I care less about Darth Tyrannus. The Emperor, he's okay, but he's pretty lame. One thing, and I was talking earlier about how Darth Maul should have been featured in all 3 Star Wars of the prequels, but they did bring him back in the Clone Wars cartoon, which I watched that arc until they freaking knocked him off in the show or something, or he got betrayed by the Empire. And they did just have him in Rebels, which I didn't like that they turned him good. How you make one of the most awesome villains in Star Wars become good? It's just whack. It's like turning freaking Maleficent into a good person, which I didn't care for that movie, but I did care for the villain before that, until I seen the live action movie, and then I'm like, oh god. But, I guess that'll wrap it up. Like I said, no payback prediction. I'm not going to do no review of it either. I could care less. Pretty much know what's going to happen anyway. I probably will review Madden 16 Friday instead of doing my prediction show. And I may have a couple other videos before then, but if not, I probably won't have no other videos till next week. But that'll do it. Please like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, follow me on my Facebook fan page, Mr. Hornby 83 Topics. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Hornby 83. And until the Madden review, peace out.